Welcome to CBD 101. Please come closer if you want to be in the know because this information may or may not change your life. No big deal. So who doesn't want to feel better about their life, right? Like a little less anxious, a little less exhausted, a little less annoyed that their husband still can't figure out how to squeeze a tube of toothpaste. I don't understand. It's not in the middle. So today we are going deep with the founders of Sagely Naturals and Fleur Marché on everything you need to know to heal your body naturally. You're probably wondering who I am and like why am I here with these experts? That's a great question. My name is Haley and I am the co-founder of a comedy content studio called Don't Call Me Mommy, which means nothing about CBD, but I am the biggest CBD enthusiast and cannabis enthusiast because who isn't? So what I want to go through today is where you guys are all at before we dive in so we can kind of get like a read on like how new you are to CBD and if you tried it before. So with a show of hands, raise your hand if you've heard of CBD before. Which if you're not, yeah, everybody please. Keep them up if you have tried CBD before. All right, and keep it up if you found something that works for you. Okay, these are good odds. It took me, I'm not joking, years to find something that I felt was effective. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself because you can do that better than I can, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Kerrigan Behrens, and I am one of the founders and the co-CEO of Sagely Naturals.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lewis, and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Fleur Marché.
Hi, I'm Meredith Schroeder, and I'm a co-founder of Fleur Marché as well.
I love these brief intros. Usually it's like 14 minutes of someone just talking about their life, so respect for the game. You're like, no, I'm a big enough deal, I don't need that. So I want to start talking about even just the business, because I think a lot of us here are entrepreneurs. So for Meredith and Ashley, you guys met at Goop, which I love. I want to know, what was the moment when you guys were like, we are the ones to rebrand cannabis for wellness, and like why you wanted to do this to begin with?
So I can start. So while we were at Goop, I ran the wellness business, so on the product side of things. And early on, we were looking into CBD because GP, to her credit, really was early in this idea of cannabis as wellness. And as part of that, started looking into CBD products, CBD as an ingredient. Do we want to sell other people's products at Goop? Should we be making our own products? And it really became clear that CBD was a very therapeutic tool that could really have a host of benefits that were not being recognized by the women who we were selling product to at Goop, who for all intents and purposes were very progressive in terms of their wellness choices. So they were willing to do a vaginal steam, willing to work with crystals, willing to put ashwagandha in their coffee. But when you said the word cannabis, would sort of say, oh, no, not interested in getting high. I'm not a pothead. I had a bad experience in college. Just like, no, thank you. Like, why would you even talk to me about that? And it felt like there was a real disconnect and an opportunity to really change the narrative so that these women who really needed to feel better could take advantage of a tool that they were not recognizing as such. So I felt like there was a real opportunity to do it. And Meredith and I were work wives. So as I was coming to that realization, she too was coming. So I'll let her tell you her story.
Yes, I come from the experiential side of cannabis. So I, in the past, I don't know, probably 3 years, I guess it's going on now, kind of rediscovered cannabis in this like 2.0 phase. And I previously only knew cannabis really exactly how Ashley just described it, as like the scary bong that came near you that you didn't know how to use. And didn't ever feel like it was an effective tool for me or my wellness routine. But I had a great experience in Aspen, Colorado, where I rediscovered some products. And they were ahead of the curve in terms of like a retail landscape that was lending itself to presenting cannabis in a new, exciting way, especially for women. And so I then took that experience, took that note, kind of came back from my vacation and started chatting with Ashley about it and just saying, like, there's nothing for women here. MedMen at the time was up and coming. We give a huge, obviously, nod to MedMen, but it's called MedMen. So I felt that there was a huge opportunity from a retail side of like creating a really beautiful and sophisticated experience that felt educational and really branded for women in terms that they could understand.
Like, sorry, we don't like neon green smiley faces all over everything. Like, what can make it stop? So I want to go to Kerrigan really quick. You started Sagely Naturals in 2015, which is like OG CBD, right? So I wanted to hear a little bit about, you had mentioned like you started it because you had chronic pain. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about your story with that.
So I now know that I have endometriosis, but at the time I just thought my back hurts all the time and doctors couldn't tell me why. There was nothing seemingly wrong with my spine. And yet they still were recommending that I did steroid injections, and I was taking Vicodin and Advil and all these things that didn't make me feel good, and that left me with side effects. Like I almost got an ulcer because I was taking so much Advil. And meanwhile, this was just completely incongruous with the way I was eating and the way I was living my life. And so when a friend recommended that I try CBD, I had heard of it when I was living in San Francisco from kind of a hippie friend. Never had the opportunity to try it until the summer of 2015. The first time I tried it, it was like truly one of those aha moments because I instantly felt better. It was like a honey, and it did have a little bit of THC in it, full disclosure. But I was just thinking, you know, this is what I've been looking for because I feel better. I'm actually also feeling less stressed than I normally am, and there's not an Advil in sight. So I got my cannabis prescription for the first time, and I went to a dispensary for the first time, and I was just shocked by what I saw. The branding was Cheech and Chong. It was all very masculine, and people at the stores weren't very educated, which when I heard about their idea for Fleur Marche, I was like, this is so needed. But ultimately, there were no brands that made me feel comfortable using CBD on a regular basis. I was also thinking about my mom, who also has back pain, and she smoked weed back at Berkeley in the 60s, but like not a part of her life now. So the chances of me convincing her to start using, you know, a tincture that she found at a dispensary were very low. So Kaylee was going through, my co-founder, what we now call the medicine cabinet makeover. How can I not just think about the foods that I'm eating, but also, you know, the lotion that I put on my skin, and should I reflexively be taking an Advil every time I have a headache? So her passion for natural and then my passion for this actually works led us to start the brand Sagely Naturals in 2015, which at the time no one knew what CBD was. So it's really exciting now when I see all of your hands go up that people know what it is, people have tried it. We've come a long way.
And I love that you call yourself the destigmatizer. Like, that is so badass. Okay, we're going to go deep. Get your notebooks out, ladies. So we got to get some... For me, it's been really hard to navigate this world. I saw on one of your Instagrams, it was like a bazillion CBD companies. Yes, yours. 300 tested and 30 made the cut. So I just want us to walk away from this panel today with some very tactical information on what to look for. So I know there's a lot of different ways to go about this, but I want to start with when we're first buying CBD, are there certain products like that are big no-nos in the industry? Like now I know with like shampoos, it's like sulfates and all of the things I cannot announce, but pronunciate. But yeah, I would love to know those details that we can look for that it has to have, and then also like on a science basis, what percentage to be looking for of like CBD.
So I think one of the hard things about CBD is that unless you just are having sort of like a pure CBD extract in some kind of carrier oil, which really should be like MCT oil or coconut oil, you don't know if it's good or bad unless it's something that's very bad, which and I don't even know those things, right? You know, like some weird chemical or some foreign substance. The hard thing is that now, as there's sort of a lot of people are experimenting with CBD, they're putting different things with it, and depending on the format, those things can either be totally fine or not fine. So for example, and Kerrigan can speak to this more, but in a topical product, it's okay to mix with essential oils and beneficial, right? Like it's wonderful to have these or mix with adaptogens. A lot of our brands sort of use adaptogens to make sure that it's supporting the power of the CBD. However, you probably have recently heard about this vaping crisis and all these people who are suffering from diseases or dying from vaping. And that really is because bad actors are mixing CBD oil with either like dilutants that are just, might be fine in a topical, but when ingested or when vaped and then brought into the lungs can actually be deadly. Or even things like lavender essential oil or chamomile, whatever those things are that would be fine in some other format are not fine when you are ingesting them. So it's hard to have a universal rule because it really does depend. The things that we require our brands to test for really are focused around the hemp extract, sort of like the starting material, and then the finished product. So we require our brands to test the hemp extract for pesticides, residual solvents, heavy metals, microbiological contaminants, thank you, and potency to make sure how much CBD is actually in the oil. And then we also require in the finished testing that they're able to prove that the amount of CBD that is on the label actually appears in the bottle. And that seems, those are standard tests for any botanical that you would buy at Whole Foods or on Goop or wherever the case may be. It hasn't yet become required for CBD companies, which is why it's so important to make sure that you know the brand that you're shopping with, you're shopping for. And it's why brands like Sagely, I think, have always been like an inspiration to us because they don't need to be doing the work they're doing. They just value quality and functionality and like efficacy as a brand, whereas a lot of others don't. So it's a long answer to say it is actually hard to tell if your CBD is good unless you are really digging in. It's why we started Fleur Marché, and to highlight the best of the breast brands that are really doing things right and correctly. Because we personally review every single test that we ask for. It's not the most efficient system, I would say, but until we're a huge company, we'll be doing it. So we're personally looking at all of those tests as we would if we were just pure consumers, so that you guys don't have to. She knows the science even better.
The one other thing I would add is just a lot of people are unfamiliar with the terms isolate, full spectrum, and broad spectrum, and that is now a differentiator. So none of them are bad. It's just that they come with different benefits. So isolate, if you can imagine a white crystal, it's the purest form of CBD. It's 99.9% CBD. There's nothing else in it. Broad spectrum is sort of the in-between, although a lot closer to full spectrum. And what broad spectrum means is that it's a distillate of the oil. So the oil has been processed, but it still has fatty acids. It still has other cannabinoids. What it does not have is THC. So we chose to use broad spectrum because our consumers, we recently did a survey, and over 80% of them said that they're actually not using other cannabis products. So these are not people who are smoking joints necessarily on the weekends. They want to be assured that they're not going to get high when they use their CBD products. Full spectrum, by definition, it's not as processed, and it contains up to 0.3% THC. So the likelihood that you would get high from a full spectrum product still very low unless you're taking high doses of it. But if you just want that, whatever, I'm drug tested, I want to just be sure that there's no THC in the product, then broad spectrum is probably the one you would want to choose. But it's something to look for because isolate is the easiest to work with. So a lot of new brands that are coming out with these quick products that just want to put CBD on the label are using isolate because it's very easy to mix into other products. It's really hard to formulate with broad and full spectrum. The oil is green. It smells like weed. It's thick. So you will probably find a lot of the broad spectrum and full spectrum products smell a little bit like weed. And that's why we pride ourselves on our formulation, because we're using broad spectrum, but the products smell like essential oils. They're not green. They absorb well into the skin. So that's just the last thing. I would say a lot of people are not familiar with those terms yet, but it's where the industry is going.
I love it. I think we have to get a little nerdy with it to really understand, since it's so new to us. So I want to go through the different ways to use CBD and what you find is most effective for different ailments. So since you're the experts, I'm going to just let you go through the different ways and how you use it.
I'll start with topicals. I'll let you guys take ingestibles. We started with our Relief and Recovery Cream, which still happens to be our best-selling product. It's the best-selling CBD topical in the country, according to IRI data. Thank you. So topicals are really great when you want to have more of an immediate effect. Our Relief and Recovery Cream has essential peppermint oil and menthol, so you get this immediate cooling sensation when you put it on your skin. Imagine like a natural version of icy hot. And it also helps with localized issues. So if you're feeling something after a workout and you want to target a particular area of your body, topicals are a really great way to go. They're also really approachable. So if you're new to the category or if you want to give it to your mom for the first time, I think it's a much easier sell to say, hey, try this cream that smells nice and feels nice than it is to say, here's this oil that you put under your tongue that you may have never absorbed CBD or any other kind of product like this before. But I'll let Meredith and Ashley talk about ingestibles.
So there are a few types of ingestibles. There's edibles, which are very fun. And then tinctures are probably the most popular, or CBD oils. And then capsules, I guess. And then there are other ways for products to get into your bloodstream outside of ingestibles, like there's transdermal. And so that usually comes in the form of a patch or sort of like a CBD bath bomb or something. And those products actually adhere to your skin topically, but then ultimately go into your bloodstream transdermally. I guess that's it.
Why would someone want to use an ingestible?
Like personally, I use it all. I really like edibles. I'm having an edible moment right now. And I really like patches too. I think what's easy about an edible specifically, or a patch actually, is that they're pre-dosed. So you don't have to like worry that you're not getting the right dose when you use your tinctures, dose up or down. It's really easy to determine sort of what exactly is getting into your body because the edibles have done that for you. And it's also like a single use product, which is great. And then you can kind of calibrate or add things in as you see fit. Tinctures are great for cumulative use, I think. So like if you're taking it in lieu of like a supplement or in addition to your supplements, it's great for daily use. You'll find the best effects, we think, when you use it sort of like for a month straight every single day, like you would a supplement. Anything to add?
The only thing I would add, and because this is a question we get all the time, and I'm sure Kerrigan has answered it, while pregnant or breastfeeding, can you take CBD? Yes. We both recently had babies. There's another one on the way. And I think what we would say officially is that the FDA has said like there are no studies on CBD in pregnancy or breastfeeding, and so the official answer is you probably should stay away from it because we don't know how it will affect a fetus or a newborn. That said, while I was pregnant, I felt comfortable using topicals. Most topicals, unless otherwise stated, are not transdermal. And so that means they don't go into the bloodstream. They stay sort of surface and can still be very effective. And that also, whether you're using it for pain or for skincare. So my entire pregnancy, I used Sage Lee's under eye cream and continue to use it and swear by it, as well as sort of other skincare items that we carry, and felt very comfortable doing that. And Meredith can attest, I'm a neurotic first-time mother who was terrified of everything and have not yet started taking topicals because I'm done breastfeeding as of next week, which is exciting. I'm sorry, ingestibles. But I am not taking ingestibles, but I am very excited to start again. But I did feel comfortable using topicals throughout my pregnancy, and they're great for a variety of reasons. But that is something to note, and it's a question we get a lot.
I'm like waiting for the microphone just to ask. What about like postpartum like breastfeeding? So you still wouldn't take? I mean, you've like made it this far, and then you still can't even take like a tincture or an edible. Like, throw me a bone here. You know?
Do you have thoughts?
It's still the same answer, which is that there just isn't research to back it up. So the legally cautious side of me is like, talk to your doctor. Your doctor's not going to know. Your doctor's going to say there's no research, therefore don't do it. That's what my doctor said. She knows that I started a CBD company. So that's the most frustrating thing is like there are so many questions that were asked that we can't give answers to because we're not doctors, and then doctors don't know either. So there's a lot of research that still needs to be done. There is some indication so far of safety in children, which again, I wouldn't say like now go give it to your kids, but there is a pharmaceutical drug out there called Epidiolex that did safety studies in children with epilepsy at very high doses. So, 600-700 milligrams a dose. I take like 40 milligrams a dose typically, or less than that even. So yeah, if you want to do your research, there is limited amount online, which is frustrating. The default is probably like, if you have any questions, don't take it.
Yeah. Better to be safe, snooze. No, it's true though. So I want to talk about something that I've struggled with like learning about CBD, which is like my dosage, because I'll look on the back and it says 10 milligrams and I don't want to like overkill it, but I'll do one. I'm like, I don't feel anything. I'll do another one. And then I'm like, is this working? So is it different for everybody? And also if you are a THC user, would your tolerance be higher?
So yes, it's different for every user. I actually need more CBD than my husband, who's taller and weighs more than I do. And that's where that frustrating answer of like, you just need to experiment and find your right dose. We have a framework to help people do that, which is basically start with, if you're taking an ingestible, start with 10 milligrams a day, do it at the same time every day for a week. If you're getting the results you want, great, stop. If you're not, take more. There's also something called the Goldilocks effect, which is that there is a just right amount. And it's not that more is harmful, but more can actually take away some of the advantageous results that you are excited about. So once you find that right dose, stick with that dose. There's no tolerance associated with CBD, whereas there is with THC. So once you've found your right dose, a year later, you shouldn't theoretically need to take more.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really said it. Oh, the only thing I would add is the hard thing about CBD is that it doesn't get you high. And so oftentimes people say, like, I don't feel anything, which actually, like, and what we tell people is this is also frustrating. Like, you're oftentimes looking for like the absence of something versus a palpable feeling. The only exception to that I would say is with clearly with pain. I guess it's also the absence of pain. But for me, and it sounds like, all of us, taking CBD palpably reduces pain when I'm having it. And so that's the most like sort of visceral effect. But for anxiety, and before I was pregnant and after I stopped breastfeeding, will be back as an avid user because I am someone who wakes up every morning gripped with stress. I started taking CBD. I felt like it was working. I felt like it was giving me more space and I was less reactive, but wasn't, like I wasn't going to sort of like die on the cross for it. And once I got pregnant and stopped taking it, I was very convinced of how well it had been working. So I do think it's another hard thing about CBD. Dosing is not totally clear, and you're not actually supposed to feel a whole lot. But I do think when it is working, you will know in one way or another. And so
I'm curious how much you guys take, like on a daily basis.
What's your dosage?
I take about 50 milligrams. Yeah.
I was taking 25. But I actually, so funny enough, I'm like pretty excited to start experimenting with more just to see. Again, that goes against everything with the Goldilocks zone. I just want to understand, like, for myself, like what happens if I go up, go down, etc.
Tinctures or edibles, like to get the guaranteed dosage. But obviously I use topicals. Oh, sorry. Tinctures or edibles, but obviously I use topicals much more liberally. That's the dosing situation for topicals is very different, obviously. But yeah, I do 50. I even sometimes do 100 if I'm super, super anxious. I do fluctuate with my dosing a little bit and play with it depending on where I am in my cycle of the month. So yeah.
I was taking tinctures, but I do love edibles. It's so easy. They're delicious. They're not as effective as quickly. And they do make their way through your metabolism, so you're actually getting less than you would if you took a tincture under your tongue or if you had a transdermal patch. But it's really easy to just like pop a gummy. So
before I got pregnant, I was taking we also have capsules. We have a common centered capsule. So I was taking 2 of those a day, which is 20 milligrams. And then if I was having trouble sleeping, also taking our Drift and Dream capsules at night. So I kind of varied anywhere between 20 to 40 milligrams a day, depending on what I needed it for.
Can you overdose on CBD? like what will happen if maybe you're like it's not working and you take too much like the THC? Is it like are you just going to be like numb on the couch or like can anything bad happen?
No. I mean, there's some indication that it could negatively affect your liver. So CBD is processed through your liver. There are some contraindications for medication. So medication that's processed through your liver, CBD could potentially increase or decrease the effects of that medication. But there's been no known like deaths associated with CBD.
The World Health Organization came out and said that you can't overdose on CBD.
Yeah.
Other than the contraindications, which are very real, I think the worst thing that could happen is you feel very tired. So like you might because the more you take, it just like has a drowsiness effect. And some we've read that like sometimes people have reported like GI issues, so like you might have an upset stomach. But we haven't ever that was in studies. Like that wasn't something that we've ever heard from customers, not something that we've encountered. So.
Yeah, and the liver damage I was talking about, that was from that Epidiolex study where it was like 700 milligrams a dose. So.
Love it. I'm going to do one more question, which is going to go back to the entrepreneurial side. I just would love to know, like, what was the best advice that you were given before you started your business or while you were building it that really helped you in your entrepreneurial path?
I, by nature, am a perfectionist, and you cannot start a business if you're a perfectionist. So progress over perfection was the advice I was given. Taking a step forward, whether it's the wrong decision or the right decision, is still better in the long run than being paralyzed and not doing anything.
That is a good one. I suffer from that as well. I think good piece of advice I got, it's similar to that, but a good friend said that as an entrepreneur, like you're so focused on your goals that oftentimes it's hard to appreciate the wins, because the second you hit a milestone, you're already looking to like the next milestone or the thing that someone else did in the time that you were trying to get to that milestone. And so she said, like, to the extent that you can, really try to like appreciate the wins, like celebrate them, like give yourself a moment before you then look on to what's next, because otherwise it feels like you're just constantly like reaching and never really getting to where you're trying to go, even though all along you've been achieving things. So that's an important one. I work on it every day.
It's so hard to do.
It's so hard.
I think the best advice we got was just start. And that seems really easy, but it's really hard to do. So I think you conceptualize and strategize in your head all day long for this idea that's agonizing you, that you really want to sort of like build out, but you come up with all the what ifs, and you have analysis paralysis, and it's just really hard to actually get over the hump and start. And once you do, you feel so much better because it's actually in motion and you're in the thing. So that was the best advice I got. Also, my least favorite advice we got was don't name it Fleur Marché. And we went with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 24 hours later, we were like,
Yeah.
we're doing it.
There are always going to be haters.
Yeah, no. And now y'all are killing it. So now you guys know where to go and get your CBD. But I wanted to talk to you. We have a couple minutes for some questions. Let's get nerdy. Let's get real. What do we got? Anybody? Yeah. I'm going to have your microphone. Actually, it might not work. I can just project. There's not that many. Okay.
I mean, more regulation is something that we've been asking for 4 years, because as a brand that wants to do the right thing, it's actually, we may be doing more than we need to because we just don't know what we're supposed to do. There is an industry group now called the U.S. Hemp Authority, which is trying to become that like marker of quality, but they don't do topicals, and most of our products are topicals, so it wasn't even worth it to us to go through the process. It's very expensive, obviously, for them to ask to do that. The trend I hope to see is that we stop seeing CBD in every product that you could ever imagine. It doesn't need to be in mascara. It doesn't need to be in most foods that it's in. It's probably not even absorbing into your system. So I'm looking forward to that sort of clawback. I mean, I saw like on Bon Appetit, they basically said like one of the trends we want to see disappear is CBD. And I was like, no, like this is what happens when a trend becomes a trend, because people are losing sight of the amazing things that CBD can do when you take it in a product that's therapeutic instead of pasta sauce.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think it has been great to see CBD in so many places done legitimately, but it really is it's detrimental to all of our business to see people putting it in sports bras, in pasta sauce. I mean, it's just insane. And so my hope is that we can sort of come over this like weird hump of like CBD everywhere. All the people who are just trying to like use it for marketing will wash out, and then the people who really are here to help you feel better sort of maintain, because it really is it's a disservice to CBD, because it is something that really does work. Not for everyone. We say every body is different, so it doesn't work the same way for everyone, and for some people it just isn't effective. But that doesn't mean that it's not effective, or that we have now taken to saying like it's not BS, it's not bullshit, and try to sort of like see through all the noise to like make sure that you're helping your body feel better.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add is that it's probably a distant road until that level of transparency is sort of required or regulated. So you really do have to do your own homework, or just come to Fleur Marche or Sagely. Shameless plug. But really, a lot of brands are doing it really well, and they're being as transparent as humanly possible. And I think you just have to make sure that you're buying products from those brands that are doing the good work.
All right, anybody else? Yes.
I loved the question and answer about the quality of products that are out there, because they are everywhere, and you guys can speak better. I work with a CBD brand, but you'll get a Bed Bath & Beyond flyer, and those are not quality CBD products, if at all. And so I think that, but there are some brands that are there that are like, so you're in that competitive set, and sometimes it's questionable, and like knowing what's out there and what's quality, what's hemp oil, what's not. So I wanted, for the sake of the group, to distinguish the difference between your product and something like that that's maybe in a CVS is also a great carrier, but then there are some other brands. And then also the cannabinoids that are on the rise now, like CBN and CBG, and like where, we're seeing that stuff evolve, and looking out for like the quality of CBG and some of the new cannabinoids.
CBN, I think, is something we're interested in. It like sort of like the early studies. The hard part about the other cannabinoids is that there are even less studies on those than there are around CBD, and CBD is already being knocked for not having enough studies. So I think we all it's exciting to think about them, and I think that they're anecdotally, there are some great indications, but we as an industry also have to be careful, as we're talking about being legitimate and not being BS. We have to just be careful, because we're opening ourselves up to even more criticism by rushing into them. CBN is something we're really interested in for its sleep properties. Like, from the studies that are available, it is something that really does directly affect your sleep cycles, versus CBD, which from our understanding and from what we've read really helps dispel anxiety that prevents sleep, which is a key difference. So CBN is interesting. I know even less about CBG. What I do know is that CBG on its own, again, from the very limited studies, is not as effective as when it's with CBD. So again, I think we're still focused really on CBD for now, until we feel like there's stuff that, research or studies that convince us more. But it is all exciting. I think high level under an umbrella, cannabis is a really interesting plant that has been used for so many years for so many reasons. So it's awesome that we're now diving in. But to Meredith's point, I think it's going to be a while until we actually have the proper research information for it to sort of like be widely accepted. But I hope that we're moving there faster and faster. I think.
Great answer.
We would love to add other cannabinoids to our products, and right now it's very challenging because the way that the plants have been cultivated are to be really high in CBD. And so if you just take that oil that's naturally occurring from the plants that we're using, you're not going to see high levels of CBD, of CBN, CBG, CBDA. So, of course, there's the opportunity for brands to cultivate, to genetically modify plants, then cultivate plants that would allow you to get more full cannabinoid profiles. But that doesn't happen overnight. So the alternative, if we wanted to add CBD to our products right now, is we would have to actually add an isolate of CBN or an isolate of CBG. And our policy as a company is not to use isolates. So we would be using our normal broad spectrum oil. We would be adding a CBN isolate. And then to make things more complicated, we would also have to ensure that every batch tested at exactly the same level. And so, we're already working on it, but it's not going to be in the next 6 months.
All right, one more question. Yes.
So, like you, I have chronic back pain. I was getting the back injections and everything for a year. I stopped last year. I became pregnant.
Woo!
And I don't want to go back to it. I don't want to go off back injections. It puts me out for a day. I feel like I have Charlie horses down my legs. It did help with pain, but I'm looking for a more natural route. I guess what I was looking for was there's too broad of a spectrum, so I'm so glad to listen to you guys because there's too much out there and I don't trust it. So I guess I'd love to at some point, not caretaking of everyone's time, but to get some sort of information and maybe even more of a consultation on what kind of works better, like the tinctures, the topical, all of the above, whatever. Also, all of the above. Well, nursing.
Just kidding.
I know you get I get mixed. When you look it up, you get mixed answers. So is it just kind of if you're comfortable with it, or is there's not enough out there to really say a hard yes or no? Yeah, that's the official.
We're just not
I know. So we can talk more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But you guys are out there hard. You can explore. Okay.
I know that Meredith and Ashley would be happy to give you a consultation, and we also have a booth as well. So.
All right. Let's put our hands together for these amazing ladies. Thank you so, so much. This was really, really powerful.